one of the most frequently asked questions when I'm out speaking on the circuit running for governor is, well, Ray, what are we going to do, though, when we take this stand for the 10th Amendment, which we have a right to do, but the federal government says, okay, you can do that if you want to, but don't plan on getting your education funds next year. Now, I don't know how it is in your particular state. Might be a little bit different, but I bet not a lot. Here in the state of Georgia, every local school system in each county gets a grand total of approximately 3% of their budget from federal funds. Now, we actually have a bill that our campaign has helped to write, that has been introduced in the Georgia General Assembly, that I believe is going to help us get that 3% back and not let it ever go to Washington in the first place, at least from Georgians. But I want you to think for a minute, though. The federal government lays down guidelines and rules on which set of textbooks from which your schools can choose, whether your children can pray before their Friday night football game. They tell you what test not only your students but also your teachers are going to be measured by for their success, and a myriad of other things that they decide for you in your local school system. Now, I submit to you, even if I here in Georgia and your representatives in your states could not get back that 3% for you, for your local school budget, would it not be a small price to pay to restore our liberties and regain the control of the destinies for our children and our grandchildren? Let us throw off the yoke of federal tyranny and not sell our children's inheritance for a little bit of mammon. Now, here in Georgia, we have a unique situation. We have a water rights battle that's brewing between Washington and Georgia because the Army Corps of Engineers a number of years ago dug the hole for Lake Lanier and some of our other reservoirs across the state. And now the federal government, because of that, is telling us, especially with the drought we had over the last several years, that because they dug the hole, they have a right to tell the state of Georgia what we will or won't do with our own water supply. Now, this is not popular with a lot of my opponents in the race, and they cringe every time I say it when we're in a public debate, but I'm going to say it again. I think you might like my solution to the problem. I have already stated that as governor, as a states' rights governor, I will let Washington know, fine, that hole you dug in the ground belongs to you, but every drop of water that the good Lord put into that hole belongs to the people of the sovereign state of Georgia. Now, in deference to our friends from Tennessee, Alabama, and Florida who are here, I do believe that we have an obligation as good neighbors and as Christians to sit down with one another and come up with a solution that works to solve the water problem in the southeastern region of these United States. But I will tell you, I do not believe that sitting down at the table with Washington has any part in that solution. I mean, Washington is real good at creating problems. How many problems have you ever had, though, that they solved for you? Not too many. One of the other things that always gets asked of me is, well, what about our highway funds? That's the number one tool that the feds usually use when a state tries to assert its sovereignty. It doesn't matter what it is you're asserting your sovereignty about, they immediately want to pull your highway funds. Well, our campaign, I personally have helped to author a bill that's been introduced in the Georgia General Assembly that's called the State Authority and Federal Tax Funds Act. And I'm very excited about this. It is actually right now being used as a model for legislation to be written in at least half a dozen other states that I know of. What this bill would do is it would restore the way taxes were paid to the federal government back to the way it was done for the first 100 years or so of American history. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but early in our history, individuals like you and I did not pay taxes directly to the federal government. Instead, the revenue that the federal government needed for constitutional things was raised by generating that from tariffs on imports coming into the country. And if there were times when Congress did other things that were constitutional and they needed additional revenue, their job was to send a bill to the states, and the states then would get a bill that was apportioned based on their population for each state, and the states were supposed to come up with them for themselves with however they were going to pay that bill to the federal government. The states decided how they would raise that money and send it in to Washington. What this bill that we've introduced here in Georgia would do is send things back to pretty much the same way it was for the first part of American history. It would require that every Georgian who owes federal income taxes or any other kind of federal taxes would pay those taxes directly to the Georgia Department of Revenue. And then the Georgia General Assembly would do their constitutional responsibility every year and go down through the list of annual federal appropriations, and only those federal appropriations that are deemed constitutional by the Georgia General Assembly would be funded with Georgia taxpayer money. Now, folks, we are not talking about something that's some brand new concocted idea. We're just talking about going back to what our founding fathers knew worked in the first place. And if you want to talk about taking power away from Washington, you take their money away from them so they can't hold it over your head. I mean, after all, if someone else took your money and then told you what you had to do to get your own money back, what would you call that? Blackmail, extortion, bribery, any host of charges. But that's what happens to us every day. And by the way, I know every state in here will be different. In Georgia, even when we follow all of their rules, we still don't get all of our motor fuel tax back in the form of federal highway funds. Georgia's what's called a donor state. Maybe your state is too, I don't know. Even when Georgia follows all their rules, we only get 90 cents on the dollar back. The rest of it goes somewhere else. It's about time we reclaim control of our money so that we reclaim control and authority for the people and not for Washington. One of the other things that I always have as a hot topic question everywhere that we travel is the subject of jobs, especially because of the way the Bush and Obama administrations have destroyed our economy. And we have a solution for that too. From states' rights, state sovereignty, and the 10th Amendment. Another one of those 10 different bills that our campaign has helped to author that's in the Georgia General Assembly right now is the State Authority and Intra-State Commerce Act. You can go, by the way, to our website and see all 10 of these bills that we've helped to author. But this particular bill deals with intrastate commerce. Did you know that the Constitution gives Congress the authority to regulate interstate commerce? That is, any business that's transacted across state lines. But it does not have authority under the Constitution for any business that takes place within the boundaries of your state. Although they have used the Interstate Commerce Commission to have their hands in every single one of those areas anyway. What we've got to do is go back to what this act would do. Now, you've probably heard the stories about the Montana gun bill that says that any gun manufactured in the state of Montana is exempt from federal regulations and taxes unless it crosses the state lines of Montana. Tennessee, by the way, has followed that up, as I understand it, maybe with a little better bill, trying to do them one better. But here in Georgia, we're trying to up the ante again. This bill, the State Authority and Intrastate Commerce Act, actually takes it a step further. This bill says that anything that is grown, manufactured, produced, or excavated within the state of Georgia until it leaves the boundaries of this state are exempt from all federal rules, regulations, and taxes. Now, I'll guarantee you, if you want to stimulate your economy back home and create jobs overnight, and if you want to find businesses that are looking to stay in America and not move to Mexico or India to set up shop, that are looking for a place in America to still remain, I'll guarantee you, your state would be the place they'd be looking for to come if this was the type of legislation we had in each of our states represented in this room today.